Ah.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to the second act virtual class on stress and anxiety during the time of COVID. I am Kayla Lazorchak, and I am the communications coordinator for the second act, if you don't know me. And we're also going to let you guys know that if you miss anything, you can watch this back later on our webpage. And that's just at www.sih.net/second act. And then you go to the events tab and you can watch it back live. And then also, if you have any questions, we encourage you to ask those during the presentation or a little bit after. That way we can get those asked to our presenter. And you just ask questions by going to the bottom of your screen, and it says ask a question to the presenter. You put in your first and last name and then ask the question. And I can actually show you that. Let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to share my screen, which is right here. So up here you have the class that's running right now, and below that is where you would ask a question. So you just type in your name and ask a question, and then you would just press submit, and then we'll get your questions asked for you. So we do encourage you to do that while we're doing our class and everything. Also, at the end of this presentation, you will receive an email, and it's just an evaluation to see how you liked the virtual class, if you had any problems, and kind of giving us feedback to see what we can do better. And I think those are all of my little tidbits for you guys. But also definitely sign up for some of our other virtual classes we have coming up. And we're really excited to have Deb with us today. So without further ado, I will pass it over to her. She is with the Senior for Center Renewal, and her name is Deb Cotting. And we'll let you take it away, Deb.
Hi, thank you. I appreciate you inviting me to talk. I am going to share my screen. Bear with me. This is a first for me too. So hold on a second. Hi, I think I did it. Yay! Okay, so my name's Deb. I am the manager and also RN for the Center for Senior Renewal over at St. Joseph's in Murfreesboro. We do an outpatient group therapy mental health program for senior citizens, people over 60, that are having troubles with depression, anxiety, grief, things like that. And I'll talk more about that towards the end. I am used to presenting for second act. I've done that for quite some years now, and I'm used to standing up in front of an audience. So bear with me as I learn to talk to a computer screen where nobody is really looking back at me. So while I'm talking, I would appreciate it if you have a question, or if you have maybe an anecdote or a situation that is happening with you that matches what I'm saying or doesn't match what I'm saying. Feel free to type that in, and Kayla will read that for me, because I don't have any way of seeing your feedback right now. So with that, let's get started. I know you're probably surprised that I picked this topic. You can't imagine why I would even want to address stress and anxiety, because 2020 has been going so amazingly well. So throughout my presentation, I like to put I put some joke screens up, so we'll pass through those, and bear with me because I'm a big fan of dad jokes. So here we go. Here's my first. I love Reese Witherspoon. So January started off. We started a new decade. Things were looking shiny and great, and we're excited. Rah, a whole new decade. And then we started to hear little bits and pieces out of overseas about a weird little disease that was maybe coming, maybe not coming. We didn't know. And then bam, in March, and because it affected me and my workspace. I know that it was I think March 19th, that things just completely came to a shrieking halt. At my work, we had to we had to completely close down. We were talking to our patients over the phone, doing counseling over the phone, not video, but through audio. So we had to suddenly learn a whole new routine, as everybody else did. And on top of that, every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, we got different guidance on what we should do. Don't wear a mask. You got to conserve. You got to conserve. I apologize. Let me turn my volume down. Okay, now they can't get me. That's awesome. Anyways, it was, don't wear a mask, do wear a mask. Okay, wear a mask, but don't wear this mask. Stay home. Okay, now you can go out. Okay, now we have to stay home again. So it's just been a really confusing ride, and to the point where, probably right about June, where we all just kind of like war weary, we're war torn, going, God, just can this please be over? I'm so done with it. So I think her faces on here pretty well sum up how most of us have been feeling. And then there's me. I am an extrovert. However, as I've gotten older, I'm kind of a introverted extrovert. So if you give me the option to cancel social activity, I will. So when they said, you have to stay home, I'm like, oh gosh, that's so sad. I'm going to stay home and I'm not going to talk to anybody else. And so I was secretly kind of happy about it. Also, that also makes you feel guilty because there are people that are badly affected by this. So for some of us who had to still go to work, not much change. So it was kind of it's just a very weird time. It almost felt like a giant snow day or something. So obviously this caused a lot of stress, and stress is probably a word that we hear at least once a day, or we toss it around. But what is stress? Stress is any demand placed on your body or mind. When you have an event that happens that your body needs to react to pretty quickly, your brain dumps a whole bunch of stress hormones such as cortisol into your blood system that are designed to do some very specific things. Take an example of you're driving your car down a little neighborhood block, and suddenly a ball bounces out on the street. Immediately, within seconds, without you having a whole conscious thought, a whole bunch of things took place at once. Your heart rate went up, your blood pressure went up, you started sweating a little bit, maybe your mouth got a little bit dry, you got tense, because your brain needed you to look for the kid that's possibly coming behind that ball, but also your foot, independently of your brain looking, needed to step on the brake fairly quickly, or maybe even swerve. So this all happens in an emergency situation. So the stress hormones are good. You want your body ready to react. However, it's generally only supposed to last about 30 minutes. You may notice that you feel like when you have something emergent happen like that, you may even need to feel like you need to pull your car over because your knees are a little noodly and you're kind of out of breath, going, whoo, that was really scary. So generally that lasts like a short period of time, about 30 minutes or so. I love Dwight. I love The Office. So this is fear prevents life. False. The fight or flight response allows you to rapidly respond to threats against survival. Absolutely. And then my favorite, I want to learn to live in the moment, just not this moment, some other moment, like a moment on the beach. Correct. So how have you been responding so far? I think I've heard a lot of people talk, and I have also had this experience too, where you have a lot of increase in negative self-talk, like you may call yourself a dummy or stupid, or why are you so lazy? So putting yourself down. You may feel restless. You may have a tough time concentrating. You may even have physical symptoms such as headache, bowel problems, sleep and appetite problems. Your moods might be all over the place. You're doing fine one minute, you're irritable the next minute, you feel guilty the next minute. Your motivation and creativity may be low. And the funny thing is, we all thought, well, the quarantine was going to happen. We're going to have all this time. We're going to get all these projects done. But then you get down to it, you don't feel like doing anything. You just like, blah. What's the point? It's really hard to plan future activity when you're so unsure of what's happening in the world. Are you allowed to go out? Can you go sit down to a restaurant? Are you going to do curbside? Can you go to the cabin in the woods where there's no people? Can you take that Hawaii vacation? And then you start to think, well, I don't know. I'm not really sure what's happening, so I'm just not going to do anything right now. We'll just wait. Anxiety and fearfulness. How many times have you thought that you might have COVID now? You probably at least once. For me, I think it's been 3 times. I think there's been 3 freakouts that I've had. Do you explain yourself when you cough or sneeze? My coworker, every single time she coughs, goes, I don't have COVID. I'm like, we know you don't have COVID. It's okay. Have you freaked out over a near miss or an actual exposure? I can tell you I've had 2 of those. Fortunately, I've not had any problems, nor has anybody around me been positive. So still going. My whole goal in life is to not have that probe jammed down my brain. I'm sure it's not bad, but I just really don't want to. So I've got a couple more dad jokes for you. This is from The Simpsons. And then my favorite is Baby Yoda, me holding in my coughs in public so people won't try to quarantine me. Absolutely. And with the age population I work with, we have a questionnaire. I'm sure most of us have gone through the questionnaire at a SIH facility or any other place that you go into, where they ask you if you've got a recent runny nose, cough, nausea, vomiting, loss of smell and taste, and all this stuff. Well, guess what that is in Southern Illinois right now? Allergies. So, we also have people that have COPD that are short of breath all the time. So, how are they supposed to act? So it's been a dicey situation. So we've had to learn to adapt and just roll with it. You may have a little bit of irritability and anger at the restrictions, but then you might feel guilty because you may be doing much better than some other people. You may find yourself to be easily distracted. You may care less about the things that you like to do. You may have dumped some of your hobbies because they're just too much for you to deal with right now. If you sit down to read a book like you're used to doing, you may read the same paragraph about 8 times before you realize that this is not working out for you. For me, I like to watch TV in the background while I'm doing a project, and then I will realize that I haven't paid any attention to the show, so I've had to rewind it several times, and then I just give up. These are not about people being defective. You're not being lazy. These are all still part of the fight or flight response that was only supposed to go on for half an hour. Now, instead, your brain is slowly dripping small doses of those stress hormones instead of a big gush. So every day you're getting just a tiny bit more. The result is an ongoing feeling of unease where you may cycle between feeling anxious one moment, confused the next moment. You might feel numb some of the time, and then some of the time you feel just fine, just like you forget about it for a minute. This is actually a sign of a healthy brain. It's the situation that is absurd. The fact that you are having all these things shows that you're reacting normally. It's just a bizarro time that we're living in. Your brain is helping you to shield from big, scary things and giving you tunnel vision to focus you on just the now. You don't need all that extra stuff. You need to just focus on what's going on in your own personal, I won't say survival, but yes, that's appropriate, but your own getting your needs met. This is so true. I'm so sad about this. At first, I thought I had COVID because I couldn't breathe. Then I unbuttoned my pants and it was all okay. We're going to talk about that more in a second too. So what can you do about this? Get used to it. Learn to live with it. be flexible. As frustrating and confusing as it is, it's not going to last forever. We are honestly, in all honesty, we're probably looking about another year. It's probably going to be about until about fall. And I'm not saying that to be a doomsday sayer. I'm just saying this is going to be the way it is for about another year. So think about those chemicals that are being dripped, and let's get to a point where we can fix it so that you are coping better with a situation that we cannot change. There's three things that we could look at doing. One, extend your timelines. And two, lower your expectations. Three is practice emotional first aid. And I'm not saying you pick one of these. I'm saying we do all of these at once. So let's talk about extend your timelines. Expect that you're going to be more tired as a result of the high level of hormones. It isn't you being lazy. Your hormones are being used up. You are tired. You are exhausted. You are over it. So look at ways that you can slow down your immediate life. Most of us are our own worst enemies, where we pile on so much more than we need to take on. Sometimes that's good. You know, it makes you feel like you're doing something. There's a real issue with a lot of us being fiercely independent, so that we feel guilty for taking a break. We feel guilty for sitting on the couch and watching that TV show that is completely mindless and it does nothing to improve your world, but it is just mind candy. So you may even want to take out a notebook and just write down what is the basic things that you need to do during the day to get your day done safely. You need to get out of bed. You need to feed yourself. I had originally said you need to get dressed, but I will confess that on Sunday, I did not get out of my pajamas until 6 p.m. And the only reason I got out of my pajamas at 6 p.m. is because my aunt called me to get the pressure washer back that I had borrowed a little while ago. And so my idea of getting out of my pajamas so that I didn't have to admit that I didn't get out of my pajamas was to put on a sweatshirt and go over to her house. So that is not on my priority list of things that have to be done. I personally have to go to work, so there's things that you do during the day that you can't avoid. There are things that you do during the day that are nice to do. And then there are things that are just plain extra. So take a look at what you can slow down, how you can slow yourself down. Lower your expectations. Give yourself permission to do self-care. Again, this is another area, especially those of us who've been moms, and I'm not slighting dads at all, but this is a thing that we get in the habit of serving other people, being caregiver to other people. A good example for me is I raised 5 boys, which meant that my food was never hot when I sat down to eat, and it never even occurred to me that that was an issue. It was just part of my world. That's just the way it was. When I sit down to dinner, everybody else is going to be just about finished with dinner. So you have to back up and do things for yourself. And that can be different for every person. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Put off goals that can wait. That big Hawaii vacation, probably not realistic. The porch renovation that you were wanting to do, maybe that's not realistic. Maybe you can just paint the porch and call it good. So again, this is another area that you can take out a notebook and write down all the things that you want to do, and then put a reasonable timeline on each one of these. In the next day, I would like to. In the next week, I would like to. In the next year, I would like to. When the world is perfect and nothing is wrong, here's what I'd like to do. By the way, that's never. Understand that you're going to be all over the place emotionally, and so is everybody else. Be kind, forgive quickly. I've started doing this thing. I'm a big fan of talking to other drivers while I'm driving, because, even though I know they can't hear me, but it makes me feel like I've done something. So I'm the person that's like criticizing their driving skills while I'm also driving terribly. So now when I pass somebody, I drive up 127 every day, and I get to it. There's several points where I know I can pass people who want to go slow. Yeah, it's a beautiful road. I understand if you want to go slow, but I just don't want to. So when I pass them now, I tell them, I wish them well, and I tell them, you have a great day. And so try to change how your brain is responding to other people's maybe nastiness, and understand that they all also getting that drip of stress cortisol hormones. They are also worn out and over it. And even whether your beliefs are the same or not, they are all just in the same boat as we are. So once you start understanding that and stop taking things personally, it kind of helps your own mental state. Um, I put toolbox on here because I want to remind people that, or tell people that you look at your coping skills as a toolbox. You're supposed to get a full set of tools at some point during your childhood to your teenage years and your early adult life. Hopefully you got a full set of tools. Some people didn't, other people did. Some people got parts of them. But when we are under a lot of stress, sometimes those tools just aren't available to us. So what needed a screwdriver is going to get a giant hammer, a mallet instead. So keep in mind that sometimes people may be out of their ability to use a screwdriver, and that's all they have is the hammer. Practice emotional first aid. Learn self-soothing techniques. I put box breathing. There's many different kinds of breathing techniques. If you searched on the internet breathing techniques, it would turn up a bajillion. So, find the one that works for you. I'm going to show you guys how to do box breathing, which is kind of fun. And it's really easy and you can do it anywhere. I have that exercise at the very end. You can also do things such as make an appointment with yourself. If you find yourself still rushing, if you find yourself still in caregiver mode and you're having a hard time disengaged with that, make an appointment with yourself for an hour or however long you decide, where you're going to be out of contact with other people. For an hour, you can turn your phone off. You don't have to answer your phone. You're just going to do something you love, whether it's read a book on the porch, or you're going to go fishing, or you're going to exercise, or whatever. So you may even find it necessary to just put that on your calendar. Just do it. You can learn to meditate, and if the word meditation gives you the heebie-jeebies because it sounds like hippie stuff, then I want to show you that there are other things you can do that are actually meditation. It's just called something different. For instance, if you love to fish, the point of meditation is to focus you on the now. Not the past, not the future, just what's happening right now. Your brain is not spinning. It's allowing you to focus right on what you're doing. So someone who loves fishing, they can do that for hours. You can read a book on the porch. You can do bird watching. You can do hiking. All of these things are kind of a form of meditation without breaking out any kind of fancy clothing or anything to do these expensive meditation techniques online. You don't have to do that. Strengthen your social network. When I talk to people, when they first contact us, I talk to people and I ask them a whole bunch of questions. One of the things that I ask them is, who's your next of kin? Who's your person? Who's the person that you go to? An unfortunate amount of time, people have real hard time telling me who that person is. Their kids have moved away, or the people around them have passed away, or they've moved to a new area and they just don't know anybody. So one of the things that we do in group is we help them kind of connect to somebody. If you're in the middle of making a cake and you realize that you're a cup short of sugar, who are you going to ask for sugar? If you are in your car and you break down, who are you going to ask for a ride? If you are having surgery and they tell you you have to bring somebody with you and that person has to wait with you the whole time, who is that person? So we try to encourage people to pull that together a little bit better, rather than wait until that thing happens that you need that thing. You already have that in place. So I encourage everybody to take a look at your social network and see, do you have somebody, if you're feeling really bad and you feel like crying, who do you call to talk to that you trust to let you cry on the phone? With COVID-19, we've been asked not to be around each other. Over the last 6 months, we've kind of fine-tuned it to, okay, we understand that you have certain people that you're going to be around. Maybe it's a person in your house, maybe it is your person that doesn't live with you but does caregiving. So you kind of have a bubble of people that are allowed to be with you, because you understand what they're doing on their own and whether they're being safe or not. So I encourage you to create a bubble that includes people that you trust. For most of us, the video calling thing was not a thing. I don't do video calling. I don't want to see myself on camera. So when this first started, my doctor made me do a video call with her, and I love her to pieces. So I canceled that and I put it off. And then she made me, because what do they do? What do doctors do? They hold you hostage. You don't get any more medication until you call me. So I'm like, fine. So I did that, and guess what? I didn't die. It was fine. I survived it. So now I've actually started using video calling for family. If you consider, there's many different ways that you can do this. It doesn't have to be one scary web application or whatever. You can do it. It's very simple through like Facebook. It's simple through your phone has an app. There's a dozen different ways you can do it. So if you haven't already had the opportunity to explore that, I highly encourage you. When we talk, we use our hands. Our facial expressions, these are things that are missing on a regular audio call, or by text is terrible. You don't get, for me, I tend to be a very sarcastic person, and I make inappropriate jokes at the wrong times. And so people can feel like, oh, that was not very nice, when I didn't mean that at all. So with video calling, you get to see somebody's facial expressions. You get to see their cat. You get to see their baby who learned to blow kisses. So it can be kind of a fun experience. We have, with our inpatients, and also I know that the nursing home and the assisted living, they all have access to, it's not perfect, but they all have access to video calls in some way. So if you know somebody that is stuck as an inpatient, or stuck in a nursing home, or in a assisted living, ask the staff how you can do a video call with that person if they don't have their own tablet or smartphone, because they have a way, I can promise you. And it's very, very important. Learn a new trick. This is right along with self-care and taking a break. Ask for help. I can tell you that my sister just had surgery. She has diabetes, and she just lost a couple of toes because of some poor self-care on her part. And her neighborhood complex asked her to mow the lawn, and I say that in the most euphemistic, gentle way. They suggested that she mow her lawn, and it's just a tiny postage stamp worth of yard. So she has a son that lives about an hour away, but she felt like asking him would be a burden, or she didn't want to bother him. So I forced her to do that, and she did. And of course, he came right over and mowed it, and it wasn't a big deal. It took him all of 10 minutes. So we do a lot of negative self-talk in our heads over what other people are going to do. We write a story about what other people, or how other people are going to react, and it's probably false a lot of the time. So learn to ask for help. Physical self-care, and I'm going to say that this disclaimer that do as I say and not as I do. Eat right-ish. Right now during COVID-19, it's been difficult because we're not getting to the grocery store as much. The things that we normally eat are maybe not as available as they used to be. We're not sitting down in restaurants. We're doing curbside. I personally have discovered the magical world that is food trucks. In Southern Illinois has been fantastic. So the running joke is that it's, instead of the freshman 15, it's the COVID-19. And I have to address that, so basically take a look at what you're eating. Are you eating a lot of junk food? Are you eating a lot of high fat stuff? Are you eating enough fiber? Are you eating enough whole vegetables and whole fruit? Exercise, and this is a tricky one because everybody comes with different abilities or disabilities. Sometimes I get all gung-ho, just go for a walk. And then they tell me, well, I have neuropathy in my feet and I'm afraid that I'm going to fall. Basically, the rule of thumb is do more than what you're already doing. So if you're already getting up to go to the bathroom and you're walking to the bathroom, make 2 laps instead of 1. So just try to do more than what you're doing. You don't have to get out there and do a 5K, although that's not a bad thing, unless you're me and you hate running. Dial back your bedtime and get more sleep. This is also a trick because we are kind of just feeling blah. Sometimes we fill that blahness in with TV or screen time. One of the nasty things about screen time is it emits a blue light that can disrupt our sleep cycles. So you should take a look at turning your screens off, making a rule to turn all your screens off about an hour before you're planning to sleep. Start some new bedtime routines. If you're heavily dependent on the screen time, maybe try taking a bath or try sitting in a rocking chair and reading. Just anything to kind of bring yourself down and get ready for sleep. Drink more water. Unlike me, where I nurse my coffee from the morning until the same cup of coffee, the morning until about noon, and that's all that I'll be drinking during that time. It's tragic. It's terrible. I'm a nurse. I know better than this. So I have to really remind myself to drink more water. I put a tumbler of water in front of myself, and I will have that gone before work ends. One of the other unfortunate things that we discovered when we had to do the shutdown is we asked everybody to stay away from the hospital, stay away from the doctor's offices, stay away from the emergency room. What happened was we found that people were not getting their routine stuff done. They weren't having their labs monitored. They were not taking symptoms serious enough to get medical attention. We had people avoiding the emergency room when they thought they might be having a heart attack. So obviously now you'll hear from your doctor's office more often to get those routine appointments done. Make sure you're taking care of your chronic diseases. This is probably the hardest one of all. Challenge yourself to a social media and news timeout. Do as much as you possibly can do, whether it's an hour's worth, a day's worth, a week's worth after the election. I promise you, every single one of you know who you're voting for or already have voted. So what you're doing is just adding stress onto yourself. So that stuff is all going to be there. And if anything super important happens, I promise you're going to hear about it without getting on social media. If you do go on social media, you can unfollow everything and person that raises your stress level, even if they are on your side and they have your same beliefs. There are people it seems like that's their whole job in life, is to just pour out all these weird, toxic, controversial things on Facebook. If you don't already know this, you don't have to unfriend Aunt Jane that has nothing better to do than put out conspiracy theories. You can unfollow that person on Facebook. So they're still there, and they don't know that you've done this, but it takes it out of your immediate timeline that you're following through. And you can go to her page and look at Aunt Jane's stuff whenever you want to. However, you can make your timeline more about actual family things and those cute cat videos and those absolutely great baby laughing videos that I love. So think about doing that if you can't go without social media. All that stuff's still going to be there if you have to see it. I promise. Absolutely. So there are a couple of things that go beyond usual stress that we're all pretty much dealing with. A lot of people have anxiety to the point where they're feeling anxious every single day, or they may feel anxious several times a week. So anxiety is not uncommon these days. It is a fear of the future, whether you understand what's causing the anxiety or not. It could be reasonable or even totally unreasonable. It doesn't matter. The end result is it causes a lot of symptoms that are pretty much exactly the same symptoms as we talked about for that fight or flight stress release. It is basically a permanent state of fight or flight with the same hormones. It can cause nausea, stomach ache, heart beating too fast, or skipping a beat, or squeezing really hard, or it feels like somebody's sitting on your chest. As a matter of fact, you may even know somebody who's had to go to the emergency room because they thought they were having a heart attack, only to find out that all the labs and EKGs and everything were normal, and then the doctor told them you're having a panic attack or you're having anxiety. That's pretty common. That's no reason to not go to the emergency room if you're having chest pain. It's better to go with chest pain than not go. So don't try to figure that out yourself. The other things are chronic fatigue. You could just be feeling tired all the time. You have shortness of breath. The feeling that something bad is going to happen. And here's a really good slide that kind of defines that. You may know what it is that's causing that impending feeling of doom, that something bad is about to happen. You may kind of understand a little bit about it, or it could be just completely out of the blue and maybe even a little bit unreasonable, either to yourself or to somebody else. Somebody might say, oh, that's just silly. But basically, it still just feels bad. Another thing that is on beyond stress is post-traumatic stress disorder. We originally thought about this for the soldiers coming back from war. You may have seen even on movies and things of people coming back from war that hear something while they're sleeping, and then they are instantly thinking that somebody is shooting at them. We now understand that most severe trauma has the ability to cause post-traumatic stress disorder situation or PTSD, depending on the person and the circumstances. We saw a lot of it after 9/11. We even saw to a certain extent a little bit after the May 9th storm. Big things that can disrupt somebody's life and cause an insane amount of fear. For some people, even a real bad car accident can cause post-traumatic stress disorder. Triggers can cause the re-experiencing of that fight or flight response to initial trauma inappropriately. I can give you an example for my own self. I had a bad car accident, I think like 11 years ago, and the airbags went off and I ended up in the hospital, and I broke some ribs and I had some nerve damage in my chest where the seat belt pulled on me. And I was driving down the road on a couple of different occasions in a totally different car in a safe situation, as much as you can say that on the road with deer. And I totally smelled the smell of the airbag going off. It is a very distinct smell, and just because of how badly it hurts, because I was sitting too close, I had that happen to me a couple of times. That's a perfect example of a flashback. Obviously, I got past that. I coped with it. I'm driving just fine. It's no problem. Other people, on the other hand, may need mental health help to get past it. You may notice nightmares if you're having a lot of nightmares, avoidance of possible triggers. For instance, in my case, if I had completely decided that I'm never driving again. Hypervigilance, where you're super focused on making sure your surroundings are safe. Difficulty falling or staying asleep, and problems with anger. So The reaction to the year 2020. Good grief. The immediate stress and anxiety of the threat, really good. We needed to pull everything together and everybody together. We needed to focus on the situation. We needed to prepare. We needed to make sourdough bread. We needed to can some stuff. We needed to buy up all the toilet paper we could possibly find. We needed to do all this zombie apocalypse stuff. We did that. Okay, great. Now what? The ongoing nature of the pandemic and now political and global situation, bad. It is causing a lot of this lingering stress stuff that's going on. Reaction to the ongoing stress of our reality for some people goes beyond stress. It goes beyond anxiety. It goes beyond that getting it fixed and preparing and super focus. It becomes ugly. When is it a problem? When you're unable to get your day together, you're not showering, you're not eating, you're opting out of everything that you're supposed to do. Ongoing anxiety or frequent panic attacks, ongoing sleep and appetite disturbance, crying a lot, angry outbursts, loss of hope, maybe even in a very severe case, wish to die, feeling like you just wish you wouldn't wake up sometimes, or you actually want to hurt yourself, or are feeling suicidal. What needs to be done? Pretty obvious that the first thing is bring it to the attention of either a loved one or a family physician or psychiatric professional. There are resources in the community for mental health support. For instance, if you're having trouble with grief, there are several grief support groups. There is a group called a national group called NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, and they both have support group meetings locally. Obviously, our area is not St. Louis, so what's available can be a little stretched thin. Unfortunately, I've seen over the past 15 years I've lived here that support groups come and go because interest wanes. So talking to people such as Second Act or Shawnee Alliance or whatever, they usually have a good grip on who's actively going, still having groups and stuff. So if you need resources like that, you can ask me or somebody else like Kayla or Tracy or Shawnee Alliance or your physician. And then obviously there's my group, the Center for Senior Renewal, and I explained a little bit about it, but if you guys have any questions, I'd be glad to tell you about that. One last joke, I promise. What kind of joke can you tell during a quarantine? An inside joke. All right. So back to the box breathing. I can't figure out a way to pause the animation that I have on the next slide. So I'm going to tell you about it first. Basically, box breathing is you breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, and you hold that for 4 seconds. So I'm going to show you this, and you can do this, and you can actually find this online. If you just search box breathing, you'll see this exact thing. As a matter of fact, this was the very first one that showed up. So here we go. Okay, we're going to skip this one because we're just going to watch it for a second because it's very pretty. Okay. All right, everybody ready? Let's go. Okay, breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 3, 2, 1. Breathe out for 4 seconds and hold that for 4 seconds. If you do this in several different cycles, and it's very mesmerizing, it can actually change the brain chemistry and kind of cancel out some of those stress hormones. There is a measurable lowering of stress hormones if you practice this fairly regularly. So this is something that you can easily do throughout the day, or if you're feeling particularly stressed, or if that person just asks you one more thing and you're over it, you know, you can, this is your way of not using your hammer, then you can use your screwdriver. Okay. That is it.
Okay, so we had one question, and it was about the websites for video calling. I can attach those to an email for those that signed up for the class. Yep. So as long as you signed up for the class, I can attach some of those. But would you like to go over kind of your best options?
Yeah. Probably the very easiest one, if you have an Apple phone and the person that you're calling has an Apple phone, it is part of your phone. If you are on Facebook, Messenger allows you to do a video call. If you have Verizon web texting, that allows you to make a video call as well. I personally like Zoom. It takes a second to learn it, but once you do that, it gets easier each time you do it. And that allows you to do all kinds of cool things, including share your screen like we're doing right now. As regular old Joe Blow citizen, you get to do that. So if you are, like I helped my sister with some disability paperwork that she was doing. And what we did is she was on her computer in Florida, I was on my computer in Illinois, and she shared her screen to me, and we literally, on video, we could see each other, and we were literally looking at her computer screen while she was typing in all the information, and it was kind of cool. So I like Zoom. It's easy. It's free. There are a number of other types of chat things that you may have. So whatever chat you're using, probably at this stage in the game has some sort of a video call. You can try Googling it if you're not sure. I mean, Zoom and Facebook Messenger are probably the two most common ones. We are currently using a thing called WebEx, which is more of a business application. They do have a free version of it. I did try to use it with my sister. It is miserable to use. I would not recommend it. It is too complicated. So Zoom is probably the best one. Awesome. I don't get paid to advertise for Zoom either.
No, Zoom is pretty easy. I've actually used that. And then also another good one that I personally use is if you have an Apple phone, you can do FaceTime, and it's super simple. So that's what me and my grandma use.
Can you do FaceTime if the other person doesn't have? I'm an Android person, so I don't know that. So can you invite a person that's not on Apple?
So I think they both have to be Apple.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Because me and my husband can't, and he's got a Google phone, so you do have to both have Apple phones for it. But it's super simple, so if that's an option, that's easy too. But yeah. Well, Tracy, do you have any questions or anything?
Well, I do. Hi, everybody. I'm Tracy Heron. I'm the manager of Second Act, and glad to have you aboard today. If you're watching, I'm going to try to remember to not swing my chair. There's etiquette things you're not supposed to do when you're video calling, and we sometimes forget that. So we're all learning, definitely. But I was wondering, Deb, if you could even just tell us a little bit more about what you do at Center for Senior Renewal, especially during this time of COVID when we're kind of supposed to socially distance. Yeah.
The patients that we have come in for group therapy, and they spend about 2.5 hours with us. We do have transportation, so we pick them up, and with COVID, we're only allowed to have one person on the van at a time. When they get to group, obviously we're screening them before they even get on the van. They have their temperature taken. The questions are asked. Everybody has to wear a mask the whole time. In the group room, there are plexiglass dividers on the table, and that allows people to temporarily move their masks so that they can drink coffee or eat a snack. And then obviously SIH has some extra protocols for staff, so we wear goggles that make us look like Poindexter. So the counselors run the group, and the group kind of runs like the first the first 45 minutes is check-in, where everybody's saying how they're doing. And then the middle part of group is a teaching situation where they're learning about coping skills or a particular topic that the counselor has picked. Then the third part of it is actually applying that, how they're going to apply that to their situation or how it might work for them. So it's kind of an education part. So most people come to us either 2 days a week or 1 day a week. I have one person that comes 3 days a week. It all depends on how severe things are for you. They may attend anywhere from 6 months to a year, and a couple have attended a little bit longer than that. It's all very team approach, so we get together and decide what treatments are necessary or working for each person. So it looks a little bit different for each person. My counselors, I have one LCSW and one licensed professional counselor. So they are both very good at holding group. Then there's a nurse. I have an LPN that works for me, and we do the usual doctor day type stuff that you're used to seeing the nurse do on doctor day, and the medication management and things like that. The physician that I have is Dr. Qureshi. He's a psychiatrist, and he and I have been with the program since the very, very, very beginning, before there was even carpet on the floor, and the middle wall was still in the group room. So we've been here since the beginning. He's wonderful. Most of the people absolutely love him. And so he sees people about every 6 weeks to 2 months. Let's see. We used to, before all this COVID craziness, we used to do a hot lunch after a group was over. But now it's kind of, we weren't allowed to give any food at all. And then we are now having boxed lunches. So we're hoping to get back to a more normal situation. My groups used to have 8 to 10 people in them. I'm limited now to 5 or 6 because of social distancing. I had to get out a tape measure and measure off the floor on how many people I could actually put in my group. So I think that's it in a nutshell.
Have you found any more questions there, Kayla, that's coming through? Any members?
I think that's all we really have in here. But I definitely encourage you. I think Tracy has a few words. So if you do have any questions, please post those so we can get those asked real quick. But if not, I guess, Tracy, if you want to wrap it up.
Yep, Deb, if you want to stop sharing your screen, that'd be great. We're all learning that too.
I was going to say, hold on. Okay.
There she goes. Okay. Hey. I was just looking up, I know you brought up NAMI, which is National Alliance for Mental Illness, and I go to church at Our Savior Lutheran Church, and that is where the local chapter of that meets. And just if you were curious about that group, Mary Gray is our local contact. And
I was just on a phone call with the community benefits people, and I met a whole lot of people, and I was just going to look. I was like, hold on, I know the answer to this question. I just met Mary Gray, who is the NAMI coordinator through SIH. So yay.
Yep. So she's got a phone number if you need it. It's 618-203-9182. So, and don't be ashamed when you have to tap into some of these things. It's a really, really hard time. All of us are going through something that just feels like we've lost something, and Kayla and I are feeling it just because we haven't been able to see our second act members. And so we get it. We totally get it. But we're here for you. So truly, if you do have any questions or if you're wrestling with some of this technology and you're wanting to learn how to do some more of these video chats and things, we're here to help you for that. So before we wrap it up, just a couple of things I want to share what's going on some with SIH and with Second Act. This is actually our first class, real class, with a featured speaker, and thank you, Deb. You did a fabulous job today for us. We appreciate that. But as some of you know, the governor, not to bring up more bad news, but the governor was in Jackson County yesterday, just reiterating that we have had some spike here in our region, and therefore some additional mitigations have happened. SIH currently has about 27 COVID patients, which is more than we've ever had since March. So that's something, and it's not folks that have been in nursing homes, it's community members. And so our message to you is please keep wearing the mask. I know it's difficult, and we just have to stay vigilant about it and making sure that we're hand sanitizing if we're going out. Also, go get your flu shot. That's something too that we're finding is very important at this time. So, and there are, I think at SIH, our urgent care has walk-in. You don't have to have an appointment to go in and get a flu shot, or you can go to any of our walk-in clinics without an appointment, or you can make an appointment with your physician as well. So
you can also go to any of the pharmacies are pretty quickly getting people in. I mean, you obviously need to tell your doctor that you did that. But the point is everybody needs to get a flu shot. Yeah,
especially this year. So, but in other news, tomorrow we're trying a brown bag lunch using one of these other modalities. Instead of WebEx, we're using Facebook. Has what they call Facebook Rooms. So if you're a member of Second Act and you are in our Facebook group, it should be at the top of the page to say join our room tomorrow at lunch. And brown bag means bring your own lunch. We'll sit and we'll have lunch together.
Oh, dang, I thought you were going to send lunch out to everybody.
No. I know, and the poor restaurants could have used it. The poor restaurants could have used our purchases this year for our typical eat and educates that we miss having, but it will happen again someday. We're committed. So, but we're also just here at Second Act it's open enrollment season for Medicare Part D. That's your prescription drugs. So Millie is available, Millie Kaiser, our Medicare counselor. So give us a call and we will certainly get you set up with a virtual appointment like this, or else we will do it over the phone.
And Tracy, I want to butt in for a second to say that I send a lot of people over to the SHIP office, the Second Act SHIP office, because you're going to get a lot of sales calls all of a sudden because of open enrollments. You may walk into a grocery store and they have a sales rep. Although there's a gajillion different plans, all of them are not the same. So depending on what condition that you have, it could cost you a lot of money to make the wrong choice. So Second Act has a fabulous option to have somebody sit down with you and look at the overall conditions that you have and medications that you're taking that may be covered on one plan but not on another plan. On, for instance, the Medicare Advantage programs, you may pay 80% and then you don't have a secondary, so you may have a big bill, or on another plan you won't have anything at all. Sometimes they try to tell people that you don't have to pay any monthly fee. Well, guess what? Their money will be gotten somewhere. So don't think that you're not going to pay somewhere. So if you're healthy and everything's great, then by all means choose that. But if you are a person that's suffering from chronic diseases, especially mental illness or COPD or things like that, it could be really costly to make the wrong choice. So I strongly suggest you tap into the office that's available through Second Act.
Thank you for the plug.
Absolutely. I give out flyers all the time.
She is super. She stays hunkered down in her office during this time, and we won't see her probably till December 7th. We tease. We do let her out once in a while. So anyways, that is all I have. I appreciate you, Deb.
You're welcome.
Anything else from you, Kayla?
I think that's all. I appreciate everybody that logged in to watch, and we can't thank Deb enough for coming and joining us and speaking to all of you, and we hope you have a great and wonderful day. So, all right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.